समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
आप समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
It may have been years in the making, but the timing of the India-European Union deal escapes nobody. It is a clear message to Donald Trump and the tariff war he has inflicted on the world, even though neither India nor the European Union would officially say so. The Prime Minister, however, did speak about stability in a turbulent world and also spoke about what he called the weaponization of critical minerals and trade. The European Union, on its part, has already called the free trade agreement with India the mother of all deals, and today triumphantly said, "We did it." What are the larger implications? Not just that luxury cars and wine and medicines will be cheaper, but there are clear geopolitical signals here, and we'll try and decode them on this special broadcast. I'm Barkha, you're with the Mojo Story. On the program today, this image said it all. A triumphant image of India and the European Union, together accounting for 25% of the world's GDP. "We did it" was the proclamation, all smiles as all three leaders addressed the press jointly. Prime Minister Modi spoke about this agreement restoring stability in a turbulent world. Later, addressing business leaders, he also spoke about the weaponization of trade and minerals, a not so subtle swipe at Donald Trump, who in a parallel universe continues with his tariff war on large parts of the world. In the midst of all this, India and Canada have also reset their energy agreement and spoken of how 2 years in the interim were wasted. The world is getting on with business. How will Trump react? That's the big question. Let me introduce our very distinguished guest today as we look at the larger implications of the India-European Union trade deal. I want to welcome to the program veteran diplomat, Ambassador Dr. Mohan Kumar. Always a pleasure. Good evening, sir. Also joining us is military veteran, one of the finest strategic minds of India, General Shukla, Raj Shukla. Always a pleasure, sir. And joining us from the United Kingdom today is veteran journalist and commentator, Nicholas Nugent. It's good to see you, Nicholas, after ages, and good to have you back with us. Let me start actually by playing out Prime Minister Modi's comments. They were in Hindi. I will translate the essence of them, but they spoke about how this agreement restores order. I'm paraphrasing here, order in a turbulent world. Take a look.
फ्रेंड्स, आज ग्लोबल ऑर्डर में बड़ी उथल-पुथल है। ऐसे में भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन की साझेदारी अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सिस्टम में स्थिरता को मजबूती देगी। इस संदर्भ में आज हमने यूक्रेन, पश्चिमी एशिया, इंडो पैसिफिक सहित कई वैश्विक मुद्दों पर विस्तार से चर्चा की। मल्टीलेटरलिज्म और इंटरनेशनल नॉर्म्स का सम्मान हमारी साझी प्राथमिकता है। हम एकमत है कि आज के चैलेंजेस का समाधान करने के लिए ग्लोबल इंस्टीट्यूशंस का रिफॉर्म अनिवार्य है। फ्रेंड, राष्ट्रों के संबंधों में कभी-कभी ऐसा क्षण आता है जब इतिहास स्वयं कहता है, यहीं से दिशा बदली, यहीं से एक नया युग शुरू हुआ। भारत की और यूरोपियन यूनियन की यह ऐतिहासिक समिट वही क्षण है।
For anyone who had struggles with the Hindi, and for Nicholas's benefit and also for others in our audience, the Prime Minister there speaking about the importance of multilateralism, speaking about how part of the dialogue was a discussion on Ukraine, West Asia, and the Indo-Pacific rather, and then saying there comes a moment in the life of nations when there is a new beginning, a new era, and that is what has taken place today. The European Union was no less enthusiastic. We did it, was their response, all smiles, as both sides closed what has been called by the Europeans as the mother of all deals. Take a look.
India has risen, and Europe is truly glad about it. Because when India succeeds, the world is more stable, more prosperous, and more secure. And we all benefit. Prime Minister Modi, dear friend, 1 year ago, the full College of Commissioners came to India. You mentioned it. And this is also a very special memory for me. It showed the seriousness of our intent and the strength of our commitment. Today, we reap the fruits of that commitment with our historic summit. And let me start with trade. Prime Minister, distinguished friend, we did it. We delivered the mother of all deals. We are creating a market of 2 billion people. And this is the tale of two giants, the world's second and fourth largest economies. Two giants who choose partnership in a true win-win fashion.
All right, let's open this up and try and understand it now for what it really is. Ambassador Mohan Kumar, I'd like to start with you. Is there the very obvious subtext, take that Trump, or would you be diplomatic and not see it like that?
So thank you very much, Barkha, for having me on this show. I have a slightly different take, and let me explain this. First, the backdrop to the multilateral trading system is that the WTO and the MFN-based trade has collapsed. So all future trade is going to be reciprocal, preferential, and FTA-based. The second point I want to make is that this is a free trade agreement. The one we are negotiating with the United States is a bilateral trade agreement. For trade experts like me, this is a huge distinction. And it is not a distinction without a difference. It is a really, really different ballgame altogether. Third, India has only about 5 or 6 partners with which we have more than $100 billion in trade. US, EU, ASEAN, GCC, and China. China, we can't have a trade deal. ASEAN, we already have a trade deal. GCC, we have zeroed in on UAE, and we have a comprehensive trade deal. So to me, that leaves out EU and US. I'm particularly happy that the EU has, the trade deal has happened. It's happened also because we've been negotiating it for some time. So my view is we also need the deal with the United States. If we have to get to $10 trillion, 40% of our GDP is international trade. To the extent that sends a signal to the US, I would like that signal to be the following: that India is open for business. You ignore India at your peril, and therefore let's do a deal. That would be my signal. I don't believe there are other geopolitical signals necessarily, because it just happens that the EU deal has come to fruition after 20 years. So you can't even say this all began a year ago and we tried.
I opened by saying it took years in the making. So I completely concede that. But just one quick follow-up before I go to the other two guests. I agree that this does not mean that India does not want or need the trade deal with the United States. But the European Union signals are clear. For the EU to have closed this at the time that it has is at a moment of an unprecedented collapse with Trump. And they have realized that even the sort of obsequious attitude that they had to Trump didn't pay them any dividends. So even if you say India is not looking at this through the lens of Trump, would you concede that the EU is?
It's
I'm
hard
sorry.
not to.
Yeah.
It's hard not to concede that point to you. I think the EU foreign policy chief said we are de-risking from China. She did not use the word United States, but I hear what you are saying, and it's hard to contest what you are saying in terms of the signals that EU may have wanted to send. As far as India is concerned, I think we are trying to reduce our dependence on China. We are trying to make sure that there are 2 or 3 partners with whom we have over $100 billion trade, and it is no longer possible to trade competitively with EU if you don't have an FTA. EU has a free trade agreement with Vietnam. EU has a free trade agreement with Mercosur, although that has gone into a tizzy. And they give concessions to Bangladesh. They have removed some GSP concessions for India. So I've already described this as an FTA of necessity for India, not as a choice. It's actually, if you look deep down, we need this deal because we have ambitions to become a $10 trillion economy.
Okay, let's bring in General Shukla. Do you agree with Ambassador Mohan Kumar that this has not diminished the need for the trade deal with the United States of America? It has signaled only that India is open for business and that India will move on in the best way that India can in the circumstances. I found the focus on order, on international norms, on the fact that Prime Minister, specifically General Shukla, spoke about West Asia, the Indo-Pacific, even Ukraine, very interesting. How do you look at what's happened?
Mr. Kumar is the expert, so I have no option but to, he's a superior brain on trade. But, from the Prime Minister's body language, the words that he used, the phraseology, it is very clear to me, or at least it appears to me that it is far beyond trade. I mean, trade is significant, but new era and all that, what does it mean? It is significantly beyond trade. Third, on a lighter note, it's 6 p.m. here. I think it's about 6 a.m. in USA. Donald Trump gets up at 3. He hasn't yet tweeted on this because I'm a little surprised. So I was looking at social media. There's no reaction from him. But on the more substantive issues, I just have a few thoughts which I'll share with your viewers. One is that the very fact that we've announced this deal, about 25 years or 20 years, you said, 2013, it got stuck in that whole problem with the automobile. So the conclusion itself is a significant step. But at least my reading tells me that it will go through a lot of legal scrubbing. Towards the end of the year, it goes to the parliament. Look what's happened to the Mercosur deal with the Latin Americans. It didn't get past parliament, and now I think it goes to the European Court of Justice, where the delay could be 2 years. So I don't know, Ambassador Kumar is the expert, but it is not done as yet. It's a significant move. That is one. Two, at the fine print, it cannot be denied that there are significant economic gains. Look at the scale of the market. The tariff cuts is 4 billion euros. Look at what is going to do to the costs of the BMW, the Volkswagen. It's going to be substantive. Even the other issues of wine and fish, leather, so on and so forth. The Prime Minister is certain it's going to create jobs, is going to open more opportunities in manufacturing. So all that is certainly good news if it works out. But the Prime Minister also said that it is a blueprint for prosperity, which means it is beyond mere trade. Von der Leyen very significantly said it's a geopolitical stabilizer and a new global order. She said it. Now, she underlined the power of cooperation and collaboration between India for all the advantages it had and for Europe. And she spoke of technology and all. But see, how deep will this go? Does it mean we'll get Dutch lithography? I don't think so. That's not going to come to us. So the minutiae have still to play out. So it's good news, but a lot of things to watch out for. Now, a few comments in the geopolitics. I think the obvious response to Trump, and officialdom will not say it, but my inference is that if you consider tariffs as a security instrument, there are better ways of doing trade. So I think both EU and India, and it had to happen at some time, we are telling Trump that, listen, we'll manage your style, we'll deal with your style, but on substance, we'll stand up. That's exactly the message coming from Mike Carney. But you see now, the other issue, is it far beyond that? If the world's second and fourth largest economy sign a deal of this magnitude, does it reinforce the Mike Carney proposition of middle getting together?
The middle powers, yeah, Mark Carney, yes.
If we do get together, then as Ambassador Kumar said, we are signaling that there are supply chains and markets beyond the United States. I mean, that is a possibility. The larger issues are this. There are some other issues also. Can India and Europe come together to checkmate the the literal streamlining of European markets by the Chinese? I was in Europe 2 months back. They are in severe trouble. On EVs and green technologies, the Chinese are streamlining those markets. So can a convergent Indian-European value proposition in products, energies, technology compete with the Chinese juggernaut? Early days, Chinese are far stronger. Aspirationally, is it a challenge to ASEAN, China? I mean, a long way off, but perhaps the beginning. And what will the implications of this be on the Russians? I mean, cheaper wines, olive oil, all right. But there are this woman who's appearing on your screen, I think Kalas, just in October last, she was lecturing us on human rights, on the cost of buying Russian oil. I mean, those things will be behind us, but they may resurface at any time. What I think did not get sufficiently underlined was the defense pact, which also seems to be in the making. I mean, Mr. Rajnath Singh met the delegation. And Barkha, as I said, I was in Europe 2 months back. I was amazed at the new vocabulary and grammar. Europe was talking about defense, security. Germany was talking of a $400 billion rearmament plan. And there, since I come from that background, this is one area we can really come together, in doctrine, strategies, TTPs, startups, business. So a lot, there is that is it. Can I make one final point? Just one final, unless you want. But you see, there are significant roadblocks. The Europeans are a very regulatory, what shall I say, entity. I'm quoting Chancellor Merz as recent as Davos. He said that the European market was created to be a competitive one, and it has become the most regulatory market in the world. When von der Leyen spoke of AI, she spoke of, human centricity, trust, safety, nothing about capacities. Where are the frontier AI going to come? Now, this is the whole problem. It must not become elegant speech making and poor delivery, because if it is poor delivery, then neither will it signal to the Chinese, certainly not to Donald Trump.
Okay, one of the very important things in all the points you've made is this even going to be real, or is it going to go through prolonged legal scrubbing?
It will go through, it may go through, there will be legal hurdles, but delivery is key. That's the point.
Okay. Ambassador Kumar, give me a moment. Nicholas has been waiting very patiently. Let me just get in a word from him. The perspective from there, especially for somebody like Keir Starmer, who has been embarrassed and humiliated, I would say, by Trump more than once. The European Union seems to have decided to get on with it. There's a clear shift in gear. And as I was saying to Ambassador Mohan Kumar, whether or not India is sending a message to Trump, the EU is. How is the Trump administration, the fact that Britain was once considered America's closest ally, the fact that Trump has treated his own allies, and India is not an ally, but his own allies so shoddily, how is that playing out among people at large? What is the popular opinion, Nicholas? Give us a sense from there.
Well, that's a big question you ask, but may I first of all say that I'm entirely on India's side in this deal. I've lived in India, as you may know, a long time ago when it was very protectionist. And I see this as the latest stage in reducing that protectionism, coming of age in a sort of economic sense. I don't know if I'm entitled to hold that view, but I'm very excited for you that you have this 2 billion deal, 2 billion in the terms of the populations of India and the European Union. And you may also remember that Britain signed its first free trade agreement with India after leaving the European Union. So Britain is very much a free trade nation and very much in favor of what we might call the traditional rules of free trade agreements and the WTO and such forth. So that's two reasons why I'm very positive about this deal. We signed with India before we signed with the EU, and then we signed agreement with the United States. And I have to say we're a little uneasy about the agreement with the United States. We're not sure it'll hold. We're much more confident about the agreement we've signed with India and the EU. But you ask a bigger question. You're asking about British-American relations. We were all quivering 10 days ago, I can tell you, when Mr. Trump threatened tariffs if we didn't support his bid to take over Greenland. It might sound quite trivial, but when your oldest friend, greatest ally, threatens you economically because you won't support its foreign policy, that's really quite a shock to the system. Things diminished after Davos, the important Davos speech. And then there was quite a big row between Britain and the United States when Mr. Trump appeared to downplay the role of British and other European troops in Afghanistan, frankly, in response to an attack on the United States. So there was a big sort of jerk within NATO, the other organization that links Britain, or another organization that links Britain with the United States. Now, things have calmed down a lot. But I would just like I'm saying, I think this deal you've signed with the European Union supports the traditional rules of free trade and the WTO. We have some other worries still. What's this board of peace that Mr. Trump's talking about? Is that a threat to another international organization, the United Nations? It begins to look like it. Goodness, hasn't the world been turned on its head in recent months? So once we get to signing deals according to traditional rules of international engagement, both economically and in other respects, then I feel rather more comfortable. And I think I express a view perhaps the majority of the British people feel. We want to get back to traditional rules, international law, United Nations, all those things that have arguably held the peace, the true peace and perhaps the economic peace over the last 80 years or so. But can I add one last thought, that I'm very interested in Mr. Shukla's comment about the defense, because I too noticed that there is a defense element to this deal, or at least defense conversations are going along between India and the EU, because we're all wondering, aren't we, or you must be wondering about the Quad, where you have some defense relationship with the United States. So if you're talking defense, I don't think it's going to lead to a deal, but if you're talking defense with the EU, that again suggests that we are, you and we are both facing a world where we stop being quite as dependent on the United States as we once were.
Yeah, I think that's a super interesting point about the Quad. And let me bring in Ambassador Kumar at that point. The Prime Minister specifically mentioned the Indo-Pacific. That is a nomenclature very much in the context of what the Quad was originally conceived to be, where India was the sort of countervailing force to the rise of China. There is an increasing skepticism about what meaning the Quad will have, at least while Trump remains the president and Trump continues to be this sort of whimsical leader. I do want your response to that. Also to General Shukla's point, and Nicholas also flagged that on defense. And third, I think it is really interesting, and I'm glad Nicholas reminded us of the sort of outrage in the United Kingdom over comments made by Trump over the role of British troops in Afghanistan. He had to actually walk that back. He had to do a fresh post saying how he didn't apologize, but he kind of acknowledged their role. Those in the media who are soft on Trump, Nicholas, even people like Piers Morgan, etc., criticized him for those comments. So something is shifting, Ambassador Kumar. Whether or not we peg this on Trump, the world is just shifting. And it is in large measure thanks to Trump.
So there is a geopolitical reaction that is immediate, and there is a geopolitical analysis that has to do with the medium to long term. Let me begin by saying the National Defense Strategy of the United States, which was released 4 days ago, said very clearly that allies and partners have to step up in the Indo-Pacific. United States is not going to bear the burden alone. So if somebody were to ask me from the United States what the hell EU and India are doing in the area of security and defense, my response will be we are doing precisely what the Americans wanted us to do, which is we are chipping in. We are taking care of Indo-Pacific because there is very clearly a sign from the United States. There is security and foreign policy retrenchment from except the Western Hemisphere and the homeland and China. So that is what we are doing. And I don't think that's a problem. I think as regards the points made by General Shukla on the procedural issue, I want to draw attention to your audience that there are 3 ongoing negotiations: the FTA, the investment, and the GIs, which is the geographical indications. There is a reason why it is a 3-track Barkha. This FTA belongs to what is known as exclusive competence of the Commission. Competence is a very loaded word in Brussels. What is exclusive competence? What is mixed competence? What is the competence of member states? This is the competence of Ursula von der Leyen and Antonio Costa. That is why they are doing the signing, or they are coming and announcing the talks. I do not expect too many procedural problems with this FTA. It will have to go through them, the legal scrubbing. The European Parliament will have to approve it. That's it. It doesn't go to the individual country's parliament. So I don't expect too many problems. Nobody can be sure, but that is my assessment. On the other questions that you pose, I still maintain that what countries are doing is to align their trade policy with foreign and security policy. The days of having a wonderful trade policy with China and having a wonderful security policy with the United States is gone. Because trade has become weaponized, as all of you have said. So what India is doing is that with regard to EU, just being a trading partner is not enough. And Europe itself wants to reduce dependence on the US when it comes to security. I genuinely believe India can play a role. And that is what the security defense partnership is all about. India can make small armaments. There can be co-designing, co-production of weapons. General Shukla will know this much more. There can be maritime security, for example. I think there can be joint exercises. EU has released an Indo-Pacific policy. So while we have excellent ties with Germany and France, I think it makes sense to have a defense partnership agreement. I still concede that it is an agreement in the making, but I think it's good that we are slowly aligning our trade policy with the security and foreign policy of our partners.
So I think that is a very a point we should pick up. That gone are the days when your trade policy and your security and foreign policy could be on 2 separate tracks. In today's world, they have to converge. The question might be asked, where does that leave India and China? And we'll come to that in just a moment. But since there has been so much talk about weaponizing trade, the Prime Minister actually said as much, later speaking to business leaders. And I want to just play out that statement, and I'll come right after that to you, General Shukla. Take a look.
आज विश्व में व्यापार, टेक्नोलॉजी और क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स को वेपनाइज किया जा रहा है। हमें साथ मिलकर अपनी निर्भरताओं को डी रिस्क करने की आवश्यकता है। क्या हमारी बिजनेस कम्युनिटी मिलकर ईवीज, बैटरीज, चिप्स और एपीआईज में बाहरी निर्भरता घटा सकती है? क्या हम भरोसेमंद सप्लाई चेन का साझा विकल्प खड़ा कर सकते हैं?
Trade, technology, and critical minerals are being weaponized, Nicholas. That's what the Prime Minister said there. On a lighter note, to you, General Shukla, before you respond to that, we have one of our audience members, Renuka, saying Trump might actually eventually win a peace prize because he's brought the world together while he destroys the equity of his own country irreversibly. And this is true. Many of disagreements among countries, nation states, countries have had to move on and gloss over them. And I think Ambassador Kumar makes this very interesting point that trade is now firmly aligned with security because Trump weaponized them. Once Trump weaponized them, you can no longer keep them separate. General Shukla. Can't hear you, sir. Yeah, start again, sir. Yeah.
I'll go along with the initial observation which Ambassador Kumar made, that despite all Trump's antics, we have no option but to go along with the United States in many areas. And I'll tell you the reason. Look, everybody is hedging, everybody is humming and hawing. Mike Carney came to China and signed all deals, but Canada is part of the Golden Dome. He's not been able to say no to Trump about the Golden Dome. So this is the power of Trump. We did a fabulous agreement with the Biden administration, seas to the stars. What did Trump do to it? So Trump remains a problem. And you see, wine and fish and all is good stuff. But what is critical is now what's going to come up. I think on the 4th of February, Marco Rubio is going to host our external affairs minister in the critical minerals summit. What are we going to get out of it? Pan Silica or Pax Silica, we were a late invitee, and I think only on the prompting of Sergio Gore. Now, those are the areas, which are more worrisome, and I thought the Prime Minister was also pointing to it. And apart from this, I would like to make two observations. You look at, why I keep saying capacity and action. Brussels is the center of EU and NATO. I don't think the Indian military till today has a defense attaché there. How are we going to do the defense stuff? We really have to step up our game, especially when you're dealing with people like Trump. The last point, and here I have a slight, shall I say, a nuanced disagreement with Ambassador Kumar. The purpose of the Donro Doctrine is containing Chinese hegemony in the Indo-Pacific. Western Hemisphere firm base, Europe to the Europeans versus Russia, no permanent commitment in the Middle East, but he's speaking repeatedly of denying deterrence in the first island chain. And he's also asking the allies to step up. So now here the problem is that vis-a-vis American expectations in the first island chain, we have really nothing much to offer. And so therefore the complications come, with the Americans. And what we can do with the Europeans, the Germans are very strong on manufacturing some of these deep technologies. We can come together in these spaces to build capacities. And, there is a business opportunity and there is a national security opportunity in the rearmament of Europe. But in terms of some lethal outcomes in the Indo-Pacific, I don't see them happening. There each is to his own. I mean, nobody will shed blood for India. We'll have to shed our own blood.
Well, that's a lesson I think we've had to learn pretty much all of the last year. But before I come to Nicholas, I want to play out what the NATO chief, Nicholas, said in the last 24 hours. He said that Europe cannot defend itself without the United States. This is, of course, in the backdrop of the ongoing debate over whether Trump might go for Greenland. Trump, of course, as you mentioned, after Davos has dialed back. General Shukla, do you have a point to make?
I want to make a brief. I was really surprised. I know what Ambassador Kumar says. In official circles in Europe, Germany, they are talking of Putin attacking NATO as early as next year. That's the new dateline there. 2027, Putin attacking NATO.
Okay, so let's play out this comment from the NATO chief, come to Nicholas, and then we'll get Ambassador Kumar to react. Take a look.
And if anyone thinks here, again, that the European Union or Europe as a whole can defend itself without the US, keep on dreaming. You can't. We can't. We need each other. And why do we need each other? I tell you. First of all, because also the US needs NATO. And the US is not only in NATO to prevent a mistake after the First World War, not to re-engage with Europe. And then again, the long arm of history reaching out to the US again in the Second World War.
Nicholas, of course, the United Kingdom, as you mentioned, may have left the European Union, but the larger question still remains, and my other two guests have alluded to it. No matter how irritated, frustrated, annoyed, overwhelmed, gobsmacked we may be by Trump, the NATO chief there is saying Europe can't even defend itself without the United States. And actually, NATO's lack of capacity has been shown up in these last few weeks. Because frankly, if Trump hadn't dialed down, if he had gone for Greenland, militarily, what could the Europeans have done? What would the United Kingdom have done?
Well, let's leave aside Greenland because I think that's a relatively minor issue. But NATO has been shaken up, yes, but not initially by Mr. Trump. It was shaken up firstly by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We've been on edge for, 4 years now, coming up to 5, since that happened. Mr. Trump just took that to the next stage and said, we need each other and you guys need to spend more on defense. We've all taken that message. It's a message well made. And I think I'm right in saying that every country, or at least almost every country within NATO, has increased its defense budget. In Britain, we certainly have. We are scared. I won't deny that. We are scared of what happens next in Europe. Somebody quoted the suggestion that a NATO country will be attacked next. Well, yes, we've been in that mood or that fearfulness ever since the invasion of Ukraine, and countries like Estonia, Latvia, Poland feel it even more than we do on the western edge of Europe and such forth. So, but in any case, nobody in this debate or nobody anywhere is suggesting ending relations with the United States. We are mutually dependent. We just feel that very strongly within NATO. So I haven't given enough thought to the Indo-Pacific element of it, but I know India has always kept away from formal alliances, perhaps only going for informal alliances such as the Quad, which is why, as I said earlier, I'm very interested to see that there are defense conversations going on with the EU. I'm sure you're not looking for another partner because you don't sign alliances, but interesting that trade has a relationship with defense. I'm not sure I see them as being quite hand in hand in the way that was suggested. But yes, if you're strengthening your economic ties with the European Union, it makes sense to at least discuss security and defense.
Okay, it's time for last comments. General Shukla, give me a second. Let me start with Nicholas. You did allude to the so-called peace board. I think Trump has found very few takers for this peace board. Do you think that it is going to be difficult to handle him on this for the United Kingdom and for the Europeans, Nicholas?
Yes, definitely. So I think we're quite encouraged that the take-up hasn't been so great after all, but the UN is not perfect. As again, India is always keen to point out, the Security Council, the permanent member veto, we could do with some reform there, but it's the best thing we've got at the moment for trying to ensure world peace. And I don't really see how the Board of Peace is going to improve on that.
Okay, General Shukla, let me bring you in. You wanted to respond to something Nicholas said, but I do want to talk about this peace board. There was a sense in India, divided opinion, some arguing that, maybe you take a seat inside the tent rather than remain outside. You try and influence the conversation. Most others saying, oh my God, please stay miles away from it. Where do you weigh in on the debate?
I think a country of India's size and heft has to stay out. We can't put up with Trump's shenanigans in the Board of Peace. But I would like to make, I wanted to make one point about the insight into the Trump mind. McMaster, in his biography, when he was the national security advisor to Trump, makes a very interesting point. He said whenever Trump would travel abroad and he would send him all those sheets of papers, he would put them aside and would say, "Bhai, tell me two things. What is our trade and how much does that country spend on defense?" I mean, the only two thing matters. So when you speak about Quad and all to him, possibly the question he'll ask is, what does Quad spend on defense? And if Quad is not spending anything on defense, not getting any meaningful deterrence, in the Trumpian view, it's of no use. I mean, this is what he...
So do you believe the Quad is a sort of, is kind of dead before takeoff?
So I'll tell you, the Trump's Quad started off as some kind of security partnership. Then it suddenly metamorphosed into making vaccines. So we've diluted the salience of Quad ourselves. And then we said, no, we'll use it for technologies and all. Now that makes sense, but that the third part makes no sense to Trump. When he speaks about a security arrangement, he looks for combat deterrence, and in the Quad he finds none.
Let me give the last word to you, Ambassador Kumar. You still believe that, and nobody has disagreed, as Nicholas pointed out, that India still wants the deal with the United States of America. But I do believe that Modi's comments today, though they did not name Trump, were pretty obvious in a way that we haven't seen the Prime Minister being in any public setting. When he speaks about the weaponization of trade and minerals, there is no guessing on who or what he's talking about. What is your best estimate on what happens to the Quad, what happens to Indo-US relations going forward? And on the peace board, do you agree with Nicholas and General Shukla that it's a sort of, thank God there aren't more countries going for it, so that the country that sits out isn't the one to be noticed by Trump and his ego?
So my view is that I think whatever people say, it seems clear to me that on the deal, on the FTA itself, this is an excellent deal. On the weaponization that the Prime Minister talked about, he could equally be talking about the Chinese weaponization of rare earths. So I'm just saying there is not one, but there is a general weaponization that's going on, and India has a right to defend itself. On the Board of Peace, Barkha, I'm writing something, it's going to be published, so I don't want to kind of second guess that. But my view is, I'm taking a legal view, which is Article 2 of that Board of Peace Charter, makes it clear that you do not have to participate in peace operations without the consent of the member state. It's worth looking at. It's also worth looking at Vienna Convention of the Law of Treaties, which entitles you to an interpretative declaration, but not a reservation. Reservations are forbidden by the Board of Peace Charter, but we could make an interpretative declaration. Let's not beat around the bush. Our existential angst is about Kashmir. There is no other thing, frankly. I mean, if you dig deep down inside, everybody will tell you, what if this Board of Peace starts meddling in Kashmir? I think there are ways to get around it. My view, therefore, and my advice is, we should wait it out, obviously. Not many countries are rushing forward. So let's mull over it. I would not rule out any options at this stage.
All right, we leave it there. I think, as somebody said, General Shukla, I think it'll be interesting to see how Trump responds to the Indo-EU deal and the agreement that is being called the mother of all deals. That is going to be very interesting. And in fact, if he doesn't respond, that in itself will also be significant because he reacts to everything, right? And so if he chooses to actually not comment on this, is he taking 2 steps back? Is he more open to a sort of reconciliatory dialogue? We don't know. We'll find out soon. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been fascinating. To Nicholas, to General Shukla, to Ambassador Mohan Kumar, always a pleasure. And to our audience, thank you. See you tomorrow.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.